Alright, now before we do anything more with the steering on this video, we need to address something with this engine first. Now, unfortunately, it looks like this thing needs a rebuild. Now, this is not the end of the world. I was kind of wanting to rebuild this engine anyways for, not peak power, but, you know, good performance. I want to make sure this thing is nice and healthy. Now, a couple weeks ago, I was looking inside the carburetors, looking at the pistons for some reason, which you can do with a two-stroke, and I was noticing that on this cylinder, on the piston skirt, there is a giant chunk missing from the piston skirt on this engine, which is not good. Not good at all. I'm kind of curious where that chunk went. Is it still on the engine? Is there any scoring on the cylinder walls because of it? Is there any other damage because of it? So what we need to do is we need to right now just take the cylinder heads off and measure the cylinder bore, because I obviously need to get new pistons, but there is a slight possibility that this engine could be bored out. So we need to first verify that if it's stock or if it's bored out, so therefore I can get the proper piston size. So basically just take the cylinder heads off and just measure all the bores and just verify if they're stock or not, and then I'll buy new pistons, new rings, also a whole gasket set for this thing, and then we will rebuild this thing later on. Which also, I need to buy another spark plug boot, because this one, I don't know what this is off of, but it doesn't stay on there, so I need to buy another one of these. Doesn't look too bad. Yeah, this does not look bad at all. The cylinder walls look in really good condition. It's really cool that all three of these are out of phase. It's not one goes up and down, then the other two are in sync, like some 3 cylinders. All 3, so it's basically boom, boom, and then boom, 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 boom. Wow. Yeah, the cylinder walls look like they're in amazing shape. No pitting, no scratches, which is awesome. There's just a slight carbon buildup, but that's totally to be expected. So this right here is where the piston skirt is damaged, and so far the cylinder wall looks fine. I kind of wish I could see further down in there, because there could be damage further down, but I don't know. Do I want to take this thing fully apart? Not really. Alright, so I just checked the cylinder wall bore. It is 65 millimeters, which is the standard bore size. It hasn't been bored out, so now I can order the pistons, and I'm 100% sure that they will fit. Now, one more thing we should check on this is the crankshaft bearings. Chances are they don't need replacing, but I'd rather check them now, so therefore, if they do need replacing, and order the parts now and have everything I need to rebuild this thing once, then not order it and then start rebuilding this thing and then find out that they do need replacing. So to do this, we do need to take this thing out of the frame and tear this thing mostly apart, which is something I kind of don't want to do right now, but it's better just to do it now than find out later that it does need replacing. Oh, wow. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, that's a pretty big chunk missing. So, I think I found the culprit. This is the carburetor that was on the side of the damaged piston, and you can see there's some chunks missing off of the slides on here. This is what it's supposed to look like, and there's 2 chunks missing off of this. So, yeah, I think I found our culprit. So I really wanted to just make sure that the piston cylinder walls weren't heavily scored from this chunk missing, and I also wanted to just double check that the bearings weren't crunchy or anything like that. Now, after watching a video of somebody replacing the bearings on the crankshaft on an engine like this, yeah, I'd really rather not have to do that if we don't have to. Now, I'm kind of curious, where did this chunk go? Because I don't see any, I'm looking like in all the passageways in the cylinder head, I'm looking down here, I'm looking around. I don't see any chunks, I don't see any pieces, I don't see any little shavings or anything like that. And also one concern I did have is maybe the piece got ground up in here and then got in the bearings and then caused damage. But I mean, there is a slight possibility that that did happen, or could have happened, but if that did happen, you'd think that I would see shavings in here and also be able to hear the bearings being crunchy, and I don't see any shavings, I don't see any pieces. I looked in all the cylinders, I'm looking down and all here, I'm spraying carb cleaner, I'm checking everywhere, and I don't see any shavings, so I'm gonna just take that as an assumption of the piece somehow magically exited the engine without causing any other damage, because I'd really rather not have to replace the crankshaft bearings if we don't have to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to buy new pistons, new rings, new gasket set for this thing. I also want to get new oil lines because these are really dried and I can tell they're kind of brittle. So we'll get new oil lines. Also, this thing needs a really good cleaning and everything. So obviously we're not going to be able to fully rebuild this thing in this video. So once the parts get here, which will probably be either the next video of this project or the video after that, then we'll fully rebuild this thing. But for now, I'm just going to kind of just leave this thing on the table and let's continue working on the frame. Now, like I said in the last video, we first need to build the steering wheel for this thing and get that finalized, because we may be able to lower this a little bit or we may have to even raise it. But we're not going to know that until we get the steering wheel built and installed in place. Then we can finalize the exact position of where the steering column needs to go. had to do it. I had to move this seat as far back as possible. I had to cut a huge notch out of this tubing just to be able to do it, but I was able to move the seat further back 3/4 of an inch, which is not much, but I'll take it. Yeah, do I notice a difference? Not really, but it's a little bit better. It is a little bit better, but it's still really cramped in here. Yeah, this is probably one of the most cramped vehicles I've ever tried to build, or have ever built, so... Alright, so the reason I am heavily procrastinating finalizing the exact position of the steering wheel and steering column is just because I don't like it. I don't like how there's no leg room in this thing. It's very uncomfortable to sit in, and I'm really trying to figure out how can I fix that? How can I improve this? I did scoot the seat, skeeted? No. I moved the seat back a little bit, and that did help a little bit, but this thing is still just really uncomfortable to sit in, and I don't want to build this to where my legs are cramping the first 5 minutes of driving this thing, so I came up with a plan. I came up with an idea on how I think we'll solve this issue, but it would require completely redoing the steering and heavily modifying these two pieces of tubing, but I do think it would make this a lot more comfortable to sit in, a lot more leg room, and just more comfortable. Yeah, it does require basically redoing all the work we did last week, but I think let's just do it. You know, I don't want to make this thing to where it's super uncomfortable to sit in. Let's just do it. Let's redo the steering. Now, before I do anything drastic and just build it and hope that there's no bump steer, I wanted to mock it up first just to play around with it and adjust so I can adjust it and see is there any bump steer and can I get rid of it. And I'll admit there was a good amount of bump steer, but I've been playing around with it for the last 25 minutes, adjusting it, adjusting the position of this and that and the length of it and everything, and it's mostly gone. I mean, it's not... It does have a tiny little bit, but it's not bad. That is not bad at all. Through most of its travel, it's pretty good, but at the very bottom of the travel, it does kink out just a tiny little bit that way, and at the very top, it kinks out that way just a tiny little bit. But I'd say that's not bad, so it's the question of, do we sacrifice having a tiny bit of bump steer for better leg room? I think so. I think that's fine. It's not that bad a bump steer, and maybe I can play around with it a little bit more to try to get rid of it. But yeah, I think that's not bad at all. Whoops. So it's actually not bad. Bump steer isn't terrible on this thing. I mean, it is there, it's a tiny little, it's mostly at the bottom, mostly between there and there, but, I mean, when you think about it, when the suspension's, you know, at this point, there's not going to be much weight on the tires because it's probably doing a wheelie or jumping in the air or something like that. So as long as it's through here and here, pretty good, I'd say that's perfect. Alright, moment of truth to see if all that work actually made it to where I have any more leg room. So, it's still slightly challenging to get in, but nice. It did, yeah, I mean, it's not much. It's not much more leg room, but I'll take it. It's definitely a lot better and a little bit more comfortable. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot better. I mean, before I was like this. This is just a little too cramped. Now I can do that. I'll definitely take that. So I still have enough room for pedals. My knees aren't hitting the steering wheel, so yeah. Now it's just a question of where do I put this stupid steering wheel? This has really been stumping me because really this bar is not in a good spot. I mean, this right here is the best spot for the steering wheel, but the steering wheel's hitting this bar. I can't just remove this. I could move this towards me a little bit, but then my knuckles would be hitting the bar, and to be able to make it to where I can do a full turn and my knuckles aren't hitting this, literally the steering wheel would have to be here. I could move it down a little bit, but then it's like trying to steer like that would be ridiculous. So either I just have the steering wheel like this, or I could shorten it and put the steering wheel way out here. But the problem with that is, I really wanted to have windows and a windshield in the fiberglass once this thing's fully done to make it look more realistic, and if I moved the steering wheel down to here, I would have to make it to where I wouldn't have a steering wheel. Right? Yeah, those dogs are insanely annoying. This seems like the best spot for the steering wheel. Just put it kind of down here, and I can still turn this thing, but I wouldn't be able to have a windshield, and is that the end of the world? Not really, but I don't know. I think I should just, it's either this or this. This or this. I think I'm going to go with this. This is a little bit more comfortable, and this would feel just a little too scary. But I think for safety's sake, for comfort's sake, I'm just going to put the steering wheel down here. It's not the end of the world, but I can't have a windshield. Alright, let's just cut a little bit off of that and see what happens. Nice. That's actually not bad. That's not bad at all. And because of the kind of steering we have, we're not going to be able to, we're not going to be doing this to it. So it's mainly just from here to here. And as long as my wrists aren't hitting that tubing, I think it's fine. So yeah, I think let's go with that. Yeah, next thing is we need to figure out how to connect this up to here, and obviously it still needs to turn and everything, and I still need to be able to remove this from the frame. I may want to try and get a different quick release for this thing because this one kind of has a lot of play in it. Look at that. Alright, checking for bump steer yet again. So I put vice clamp on steering column. Therefore, when I hold it, it can't move or anything. So this is all the way at the bottom of the travel. This is all the way at the top. So it's not bad at all. It does move just a tiny, tiny little bit, but you know what? For an off-road vehicle, that is totally acceptable. Look at that. Yeah, that is not bad at all. That's actually pretty good. So the steering is now finally done. That kind of took that felt like it took forever, which it kind of did because we had to redo it. But it's now finally working. We got the steering wheel installed. I may want to play around with the steering ratios a little bit because I think right now it's a little bit too quick, and because our hands are so close, the steering wheel is kind of really small. We don't want this thing being super sensitive, super twitchy, especially with how fast this thing's probably going to go. We definitely don't want twitchy, super quick steering, so I may want to shorten this a little bit where the tie rod's attached to make it to where we have to turn the wheel more for the tires to turn less. But I can play around with that later on. So as far as bump steer, it doesn't have much. I was actually able to get most of it out, and as far as Ackerman steering, it still has a decent amount. I mean, it's not as great as it was originally, but it's, you know, that tire is turning more than this one by a little bit, but not by much, but by a little bit. But anyway, next video of this project, we get to just do a little bit more to the frame. I want to add more tubing right here to strengthen up the middle. I want to add a little bit more tubing in the front to strengthen that up, and then we need to work on installing controls, brake pedals, brake calipers, and possibly start working on rebuilding the engine if all the parts get here in time. So yeah, I am really glad that I decided to spend as much time as I did trying to make it to where we have more legroom, because I think it definitely paid off. And yeah, this thing is a lot better. It's a lot more comfortable to sit in, so it's good that I did that. But anyway, guys, that's it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see ya in the next video.